Welcome back to She's Got Game. On this week's episode, I'm sitting down with gravel cyclist Maddy Nutt. We're talking about what it takes to leave a very secure career in finance to pursue cycling full-time with lots of risk, not much security, and the rest of the industry telling her that she wasn't good enough. She is now winning races and getting herself on the podium on a regular occasion. We also talk quite a lot about fueling, carbohydrates, and body image within cycling, and the difference predominantly between road cycling and gravel, and why you see more different body types in gravel in comparison to road cycling, and why there should be tests for your menstrual cycle as well as for your heart health in sport. I loved this episode. We dive deep into so many different topics. I hope you enjoy it too. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Maddy Nutt, welcome to She's Got Game.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on today. What would you say is your dream gravel event anywhere in the world?
Oh, such a good question. I'd say Transcordilleras in Colombia, and I'm actually going to go next year, almost certainly.
What is it about it that makes that your dream event?
So it's an 8-day stage race at altitude with like a ridiculous amount of climbing, just in Colombia, which I've never been to, and just looks like an absolutely stunning country. And yeah, I've met a few Colombians and they seem super friendly.
Such a vibe.
Yeah, an absolute vibe. And yeah, Colombia, just Spanish speaking as well, and I speak Spanish, so like I love traveling to different Spanish speaking countries. And yeah, I've been to South America for the first time this year. I went to Chile and I had the best time. So yeah, definitely that race is like a massive bucket list race for me.
When is it?
It's in February. Okay. The other thing with this race that's something that I've never done is you have to carry everything on the bike for every day. So it's like self-supported.
Okay.
So you have to like carry a minimum amount of stuff, like wash your kit every day in a sink.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and decide whether to carry shoes or not. That's another element. So I've got some like bike packing sandals I think I'll carry. But some people just don't carry shoes and just like walk around in cycling shoes in the evening.
That's insane. But how much does that additional weight then impact your race?
I think significantly with the amount of climbing. But yeah, you kind of have to decide whether your comfort in the evenings is worth sacrificing. Yeah.
Would you say you prefer to train and ride with Strava or no Strava?
I absolutely love Strava. I'm like Strava's biggest user. I don't know what it is, but I think for me, I use it as like a bit of a social media. So I'm always taking pictures when I'm riding and I'm always sharing them on Strava and like writing like fun captions, like describing my ride. So yeah, I love it. Like if it's not on Strava, it didn't happen in my opinion.
Do you know what? Strava is something that I didn't actually realise the extent of how big it is and how people use it like social media. I've always used it to kind of just track a run. And then I also used to put it as only I could see it because I didn't want people knowing where I'd run. But then someone's like, that's like a big social media platform.
Oh, it's huge. Like people love it. Like I've actually got like a few thousand followers now on Strava. Like, and I didn't realize it. And then I checked on Strava one day. I was like, why are so many people looking at what exercise I'm doing? But I think people actually like quite enjoy Strava.
Yeah. See, I didn't even know you could follow people on it until recently. This is how much I live under a rock. I'm going to start using it more. What is one thing in your kit bag that you always have, no matter the race?
Oh, that is actually a really good question. I think just like plentiful snacks, like lots and lots of snacks and things like, Haribo. I don't actually like Haribo, but Haribo, because it's just such easy carbohydrates.
I was going to say, what is your kind of go-to mid-race snack?
So racing, it's gels. Sometimes I sneak some Haribo in there. And then training, my favorite training snack, which is Rogue. And like, I don't know why it's Rogue because it's perfect macronutrients and it's really portable and delicious, is a hot cross bun.
Oh.
Not toasted.
Okay.
Just like, and like specifically the apple and cinnamon one.
Okay.
Because, and like when it gets to Easter, it's amazing because there's obviously lots of different flavors. So you can like dip into like salted caramel and stuff like that. But like all year round, you can get an apple and cinnamon one from Sainsbury's. And it's like perfectly squishy because of the apple. So good.
Because I've heard this a lot with some endurance athletes. They actually like having fuel that you can chew, whereas others don't like having that at all. They just like the gel's in, that's it. Carry on going.
Yeah, it's something you have to learn, I think, like it's to how to stomach certain things on the bike, but also it's practice, and some people just can't. I can't race off anything. Like eating solid foods in a race I find quite hard. I can do Haribo, but I can't do like say a hot cross bun. I mean, actually, to be fair, I have done a hot cross bun in a race before. I've done Pringles in a race before.
Have you?
A really long race, yeah. I
Okay.
had I grabbed some Pringles, but they were quite dry. But yeah, I think you just get used to it. Like I like eating solid foods on the bike because otherwise I don't find that like gels fill me up enough.
Yeah.
Especially if I'm training like really, really long endurance rides. I need like sustenance. So I sometimes stop off at a bakery and get like a croissant.
I love this so much. How long is an average gravel race, would you say, in terms of hours for people listening so they have some kind of context?
This is such a hard question because gravel racing is like such a variety. So like I like the longer gravel races, but I don't do the stupidly long stuff. So I do like between like maybe 160k and 360k. That's like the majority of my races are within that range. But there are people who do like 800k races, so like the ultra distance races, and then there are also some races that are more like 100k, the faster UCI races. I sometimes do those, but I prefer the ones where like finishing still feels like a huge accomplishment, but not so long that I'm having to like sacrifice sleep.
No, see, that's what I couldn't do, these like 24-hour races with no sleep.
I have like a hard line on sleeping. I'm fine doing stage racing, like say like the stage race I want to do in Colombia, 8 days, fine with that. Each night I get a bed, perfect. I don't mind if I'm camping each night. I'm fine with that. I can sleep in a tent, but I need to have a fixed sleep, like hour, like at least 8 hours available to me.
Yeah, see, 8 hours is the dream. 8 hours is the dream. Who is one rider you'd love to share a long ride with?
This is a really interesting question because I'd say I actually have been on a long ride with the rider I would have said. So I've not been a massive fan of like women's road cycling before, but I've made friends recently with Alison Jackson, who's like quite a character in the road scene. She's like known for like TikTok dancing and stuff. And we went for like a really, really long ride. We rode from Girona to Barcelona last December to go to a bakery, and it was so much fun. So like that probably, like AJ's probably the person who I would choose to go on a ridiculously long stupid ride with.
How long was this ride?
Okay, it was 9 hours. It wasn't absolutely ridiculous.
9 hours to a bakery, I'm dying.
It was 9 hours to a bakery, and then we went and got ramen for the train home.
Oh my god, so fun. I love this. See, I like it because it's a sport where it feels like you can actually connect and socialize whilst doing it.
No, totally. And like we didn't know each other that well before going on this ride, and we just had so much fun. And I was like, this is classic cycling, is you spend so many hours when you do an endurance ride with someone else. Normally it's one-on-one. A lot of the time with cycling, like or at least if you're in a group, you're cycling next to one person. So you actually have really interesting conversations and like connect with people really well.
What's the most interesting thing you learned about her on that ride?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say that her family don't really know much about her cycling. So because she's from like a farm in Canada, her family I think she said they'd only been to Europe once and seen her race once.
Wow.
And she's won Paris-Roubaix. Like I think they were at Paris-Roubaix. That was the one race they were at. But that her family like almost think it's like comical when people recognize her in the street, and they're like, ha ha ha, people think you're famous.
You're like,
and she actually is famous.
Yes, I'm actually really good at what I do.
Yeah. I thought that was the most interesting, that like, yeah, in her hometown, like she obviously is really famous, but like her family are just like, yeah, what's this cycling thing that you're doing?
That's so funny. What would you say is the most underrated skill in gravel cycling?
Oh, this question is really hard, but I would say like a skill that I can't do that I need to nail is like the grabbing the musette through the feed zone, because gravel racing, it used to be like a little bit more chill than road racing, and you used to be able to like stop in a feed zone, have like just a moment, grab your food, like change your bottles, whereas now people are literally like riding through feed zones, grabbing musettes, emptying them on the bike, like changing their bottles on the bike, and I can't do it.
No. What is it that's so difficult? Is it because of the terrain you're on and then having to do all of that with your hands, or?
Yeah, I think it's, you have to go no-handed, and like I can ride no-handed, but I just don't want to stack it in front of people in a feed zone. But you have to go no-handed to like get the stuff out of the musette, and like it's a high stress situation in a feed zone, and people have messed it up. So I think, yeah, it's like the combination of those elements that make it really tricky.
Yeah, it's so funny because you almost wouldn't think of that in terms of like a skill with cycling is getting your fuel in and changing it on the bike.
No, I mean, it totally is.
If that's the only thing or the main thing that you need to change, you're doing pretty well, right?
Yeah. I'd say I think gravel racing on the whole is less skillful than like mountain biking, for example. Like I did my first mountain bike race 2 days ago, and I learned the hard way that there's a lot more skills required for mountain biking than gravel racing.
What would you say is the main difference between the two?
I would say just how technical the courses are, but also the type of effort. So gravel racing's very much like, it's almost a consistent effort the whole day. Like there are sometimes, depending on the race dynamics, like surges, like road racing, but on the whole, you just ride pretty hard all day.
Yeah.
Whereas mountain biking's like 400 watts up a climb to get up it, then 0 watts on the descent. But obviously my heart rate's not going down because I'm terrified on the descent. And it's just like this constant like spiky surges in power, which was absolutely sapping my legs.
I bet. That's
just not used to it.
No, I mean, it's like when you said earlier about Colombia that you're excited about the climbing. That to me, I'm like, surely is that the hardest part of it, or would you actually say climbing for you is where you excel and is an easier part of the race for you?
I would say I would actually be happy doing an A to B race that finished at the top of a climb. Like I prefer going uphill than downhill.
Interesting.
100%. I think for me, climbing, I get into a zone. Like if I'm on a training ride and I'm like climbing up a mountain, like it's so easy to hold the power that I'm meant to hold for the ride because you have to get up the climb. Whereas like training in London, I find really hard because I'm constantly like trying to keep power down on the pedals or try and keep the chain tight to like hit the zones I'm meant to hit. Whereas like if you're in the mountains, like I was in the Alps the other week, just riding on my road bike. It was so easy, like so easy just to keep the power up, and you're doing it without even thinking about it.
Yeah, interesting. What would you say is your most memorable race day moment?
Oh, this is a really, really hard question. I think, so I did a race 2 years ago. Well, I've done it 3 times, but the first time I ever did it, it's called the Tracker 360. And 360 kilometers, which is the name. It was the first time I'd ever done it, and I was quite new to gravel racing at this point. Like I'd been racing a couple of years, but like this was my first long race. And at the feed zone, so I stopped for the hydration vest because I can't do the rolling feed, and my sister swapped my hydration vest, but she hadn't filled the new hydration vest with water. She assumed that I'd filled it up.
My god.
And I went off into like a desert area with no water on my back, and I realized a little bit too late. And I had filled up my bottles, but like I very quickly ran out of water, so I completely dehydrated, and I started vomiting. I think it was 80 kilometers in from dehydration, and I managed to finish the race, but like, yeah, basically I vomited my way round, and I couldn't swallow anything because like everything was so dry from
my god, that's so gross.
It was so bad, and I literally couldn't swallow anything. And yeah, I honestly don't know how I got to that finish line, but yeah, just that day
you managed to finish it. What would you say is the worst bonk you've ever had, and what pulled you through? And for those who don't know what a bonk is, can we explain
what a bonk is? So bonking is a feeling. It's a you know what a bonk is when you've experienced it, but on a bike, when you basically just run out of energy and you like hit this wall, this like physical wall. And actually I think I've only probably bonked once in my life. I'm actually a very, very good at fueling because I like eating quite a lot, so it's quite easy for me. But there was this ride, I rode to Oxford and back with 2 friends, which is 200k, and like we were more than halfway round on the way back, and I got a bit cocky because both of them started struggling, and like they were 2 guys, and I was like, oh guys, sit on my wheel, like this was a few years ago, and I was like, guys, sit on my wheel, like this is fine. And they were like joking about how I was like being a bit cocky, and like how they were like, how are you so strong right now? And we got to this cafe, it's the Cinnamon Cafe in Windsor, which is quite a well-known cafe in the cycling scene. And like we got to the cafe, and they both had like a whole meal, a cake, a coffee, and I was just like, guys, I'm thriving, I'm just gonna have a black coffee. Which my god, was like the stupidest thing ever, because I was like, we're basically home, we're in Windsor, we're basically home, which is like, people do rides to Windsor and back as like their whole ride. And I was like, we're basically home, and I'm having a huge roast when I get home. I was like, I'll just have a black coffee, I don't need anything else. And like 10 kilometers after the cafe, I was so empty. I literally couldn't push 100 watts. Like my legs just wouldn't move round. And the guys were so funny about it. They were completely taking the mick out of me. And I think one of them gave me a gel. And in all honesty, I didn't resurrect. Like I had to sit behind them, and just like they had to like coaxed me to the finish, like to home.
How long is it from Windsor to wherever home was?
I think it's like 60 or 50k.
Okay, so it's a long old way when you're 10k into that.
You hit the wall to the point where, like, honestly, each pedal stroke was like basically non-existent. It was just, it was horrific.
That sounds like me on the bike. Day to day
riding. But I think from that experience, I've learned the hard way that, like, you need to fuel your riding.
But this is the interesting thing with endurance sports, because a lot of the time when I've spoken to athletes, they find it really hard to actually get the amount of fuel in that they need, because often the appetite isn't there, because it's a hell of a lot. Like, you are burning through so much during that race. We're going to come on to fueling in a little bit later on, but what is a bit of advice you would give to people who are perhaps stepping into the endurance world with their fueling, just based on your experience in early days?
I think it's definitely a case of more fuel than you think. And I actually read a really good book on this by, is it Renee McGregor, called More Fuel You, something like that. There's a really interesting book that's about how, like, a lot of athletes accidentally and not even necessarily athletes, but like sporty people, like people taking up and like marathon training for the first time, or like cycling for the first time. A lot of people are like involuntarily under fueling their training, and it's because you just don't realize like how much you are burning through when training. So I think it's a case of like just keeping consistent with the fueling during the ride, like the intra ride fueling. Obviously, like, people like have a good breakfast before you do something. You actually don't need to go as heavy on the breakfast as maybe people think, but it's about that like intra session or like intra ride fueling, and like consistently with the carbs, and then also like when you get home, carbs and protein like within half an hour. Get it in. Like, you're gonna recover faster if you eat better afterwards. And I think it's better to overdo it than to underdo it. And you can't really overdo it. That's the thing I've learned as well with like endurance training, is like it's very, very difficult to overeat on an endurance ride. Yeah,
and I think that's such an important bit of advice for people listening, because I think sometimes general population will get into endurance sports for perhaps weight loss or fat loss purposes. So then they're thinking, I'm going to increase my output and decrease my input, and it's like recipe for disaster.
It's honestly a recipe for disaster. Like, I mean cycling, there's a huge problem with people like losing their periods and stuff, and a lot of the time it is involuntary. Like, they are just like, they ramp up their training and they don't ramp up the amount of carbohydrates they're eating. And like, even if you're over the course of the day eating the right amount. So like, when I first got into cycling, I used to like do ridiculous ride, not eat enough during the ride, because then when I got home I could like raid the cupboard and raid the fridge, and I could eat whatever I wanted, like have a pizza or whatever. But actually, like, during that period your body's in like starvation mode, because you're not fueling it for the energy that it's burning in that period. So it's actually more important, and you're not going to perform very well if you're like not fueling the training that you're doing. So it's much more important to like consistently fuel, rather than choose where in the day the calories come
and then splurge and do it all in one go.
Afterwards. That doesn't end up working out. And you can actually, even though you're like not in a calorific deficit over the day, you can end up still like messing around with your hormones and stuff, because your body just goes, I'm not being fueled for this exercise that I'm doing. But it's like, it is a hugely important topic, and I think so many people like kind of underestimate it. And especially if they're just like, they're not necessarily a professional athlete and they're just picking up suddenly like cycling or running, like a marathon training and something like that. And I think people maybe don't, like, they underestimate that actually like your fueling does need to change when you up the exercise you're doing.
Big time. I'm training for a half marathon at the moment, and I've trained my whole life, and even now like I'm struggling with it, and it's a half marathon. It's not like a 9-hour bike ride. You know, my training sessions vary between kind of half an hour to 75 minutes, but even then I'm struggling to get enough of the fuel.
You still need to fuel.
It is
anything like, whenever I think about with cycling, anything over 90 minutes I'm fueling, but anything I'm fueling beforehand. Like fasted training for female athletes, none of the research says it's really a good idea for anyone. So the idea that people like wake up and run fasted, like, not good for you. Your body's going to be panicking that it's not getting anything to fuel that run. And it's really hard to play catch up as well.
It's such a good point, that catch-up piece is, yeah, okay, cool, you can go and smash a pizza, but actually the damage has been done.
Yeah, exactly.
Damage has been done. What are the top 3 things that go through your mind during a really difficult race?
This is a funny question because I would say I get songs caught on loop, so it's not like a very deep answer, but sometimes I get like really annoying songs caught on loop in my head, like something like Pink Pony Club. Like I'll be like racing and I'll suddenly have like Pink Pony Club in my head, and I think because I'm like, oh, get that stupid song out of my head, it just keeps going. So yeah, stupid songs. Like there are sometimes moments of self-doubt, I'd say. Like I have to do like quite a lot of self-talk in racing. I have like a very strong internal monologue during races. And then, yeah, just like a lot of like calculating like how far left. I think in races I do quite a lot of like, okay, so if I've done this distance in this time and I keep at this average speed, I'll do quite a lot of like speed equals distance over time calculations in my head. Being like, okay, how many hours am I expecting to keep going? Or like, when do I need to fuel next?
Do you find that the maths is a good distraction, or it just helps you psychologically break down how you can then attack the rest of the race?
It's a good question. I think I just do it to distract myself.
I do the same when I run. I'm like, okay, so if I think about this split, I'm like, oh, great, I've just done another couple K without realising I've done it.
Practice your maths, especially like people who are younger and still at school. It's a great opportunity to practice your maths.
The times tables, get it in. Where did your cycling journey start?
So I cycled to school as a kid. So when I was really young, I actually unicycled to school when I was like 10.
Oh my God.
Yeah, which is something I don't often admit because it is quite embarrassing. So me and my sister had unicycles and we'd unicycle to school together. We stopped so we did that at primary school. And then when I went to secondary school, I didn't. And I did once when I was 14 and I never did it.
No, I'm not surprised. I can imagine the ridicule that came from the other kids.
The friend who walked alongside me when I unicycled is actually going to be one of my bridesmaids when I get married next year. Like she's stuck by me despite that experience. She still brings it up sometimes now that she was so embarrassed. But yeah, so I cycled/unicycled when I was a kid, and then I didn't get a bike as an adult until I was 20. So when I was 20, I was kind of in a bit of like a kind of rough place where I didn't really know what I was doing with my life. I was working for a startup in London, but like in between university degrees, and just like, yeah, kind of looking for a purpose in life, and had a lot of free time around working. So I went back to the triathlon club I did as a kid. Didn't actually have a bike, so I was running and swimming with them, but part of the triathlon club. And then someone sold me their like secondhand like a little carbon road bike for a couple £100. And I joined the cycling sessions then, and just like very quickly fell in love with it. Went for a few rides with my dad, signed up to a half Ironman. I'd never ridden, I'd ridden over 90, so half Ironman's 90k bike. I'd ridden over 90k once, but we stopped at 6 cafes to get around.
That's the way to do it.
It is the way to do it. So I got into cycling through like cafe riding, basically. Did the half Ironman, and then after that I just kind of realised that I do enjoy running. I was going to say running and swimming. I do enjoy running. I don't mind swimming. Wouldn't say I enjoy it. And I just love cycling. And I just, very quickly kind of fell very deeply into cycling a lot.
What is it about cycling that you fell in love with more so than running or swimming?
Really good question, because I'd say, so swimming I find really antisocial. You can't chit chat whilst you swim. So that's swimming aside. And swimming, you get cold, you get wet. It's not comfortable. And yeah, it's antisocial. So, and you also can't stop and eat during swimming. So that's why swimming's the worst. Very important part. Running is social. You can run with people, but it's actually quite hard to be social because you have to live within a certain proximity to people, or you have to like organise to go and meet them to go for a run. And you can't run and like stop at a cafe, eat something, have a coffee and keep running again, or it's quite hard to. Whereas cycling was perfect for me because I could do it all day without causing like any injuries. Another problem with running is it's very easy to get injured.
Yeah.
You can go for hours causing very little impact on your body. Super social. You can chat the whole time whilst you're doing it, unless you're trying really, really hard, like up a hard climb or something. And you can stop, have food, have a coffee and keep going again.
Love it. So anyone listening, cycling is the way forward by this side of things.
You also get to see more.
Yeah.
And that's where like swimming, you just see the bottom of a pool or like a lake. running, you just can't run far enough to see lots. Whereas cycling, like, yeah, the longest ride I've ever done is 360k in one go. Like, I've done like bike packing trips, like multiple days in like amazing places. You can just see so much riding a bike.
So cool. One of my really good friends is very into cycling as well. She did, is it Land's End to John O'Groats? Or is it the other way around? I don't know which
You can
way
do it either way.
The
jog or joggle.
Yeah. But she loved it and she got so into it, and she didn't really play much sport growing up, but cycling she's just got this passion for. We've actually just signed up for a half Ironman relay. So one of our friends is doing the swim, she's doing the cycling,
and you're
doing the running. Yeah. Other than triathlon, were there any other sports that you played growing up? Was it always part of your life, or did it kind of really come in when you were 20 and you got your first road bike?
I was super sporty growing up. So like at school, I was like in all the sports teams. I actually played volleyball pretty competitively. So I played volleyball for like Southeast England and then for university, which is a bit of a rogue sport. I don't think there's many cyclists that are like ex-volleyball players, but that was like my keen sport growing up. But I was never really tall enough to be that good.
Okay.
So I was like an all right volleyball player, but I was just never going to make it at a particularly high level because I couldn't jump that high over the net.
Yeah.
But I did love volleyball, and I love the team element of it. That's one thing with cycling that sometimes I do miss, is like I do kind of wish it was a team sport sometimes. And obviously road cycling is, and like it can be a bit of a team sport, but it's not in the same way that like volleyball is or like netball is.
The thing I find interesting about road cycling is, yes, you're in a team, but when you have the main rider, that must be quite difficult for the other riders if they're not, the top person that they're all trying to support to win, get on the podium. Have you spoken to many people in that scenario on how it actually impacts the other riders, even though they are a team? How do they feel that they're not the one that the team is fighting for?
I think it's really interesting and dependent on the team, and I think there's sometimes lots of politics going on behind the scenes, especially when there's like a couple of really strong riders who like it's a decider over who's going to be like the team leader for that race. I think that can be really tough, is like when you're used to being a team leader and then suddenly like another younger rider pops up who's actually like more suited to the race, and then suddenly you're not.
Yeah.
That can be really difficult for riders. I think it depends on the personality of the rider, because some people just are domestiques, like they're pretty happy. Like I think if I was a road cyclist, I'd actually probably be pretty happy just to work for other people and like be given a role. Like your role might be like you go back to the team car, you get bead-ons, you bring them forward, like you like get a rider in a certain position for a certain point of the race, and like that's your job, and you tick that off, and then you can like just ride steady to the finish line, which I think some people are fine doing that. But that's something where gravel is really interesting, because you're always riding for yourself. And actually, for some people, they like that from like, I want to say an ego point of view, but like a little bit, because like you can win. But there's also an element where like I quite like that it's on me. Like if I do well, it's because I've done well and like I've tried my best. And if I don't do well, that's also on me. And I quite like the like having that responsibility, and also like the potential to do really well. Like some road riders never get to race for themselves.
No.
And every time I race for myself, and that is quite nice.
During those times where you feel like the responsibility is on you and the race hasn't gone in a way that you want it to, how do you handle those emotions when you don't necessarily have a direct team around you to talk through it with, where yes, you've got family and friends and a partner, but do they fully understand the extent of what you're going through, because they're not going through it themselves?
This is such a good question, because I say psychologically it's really hard. And I think like it's one of those elements where a lot of people do work with psychologists, or like I think there's quite a lot of people working with sports psychologists, particularly on things like this. I actually have never worked with anyone, and I think it's probably some like an area which I could invest in and I would benefit from, because you do have to do quite a lot of self-talk and re-motivate yourself. So like I actually had recently 5 races in a row where I crashed, and like each time, and I actually just broke the streak this weekend.
Congrats.
So I'm like, thank you. I'm like, now the streak's broken, it's fine. Because it got to a point where I was like, okay, it's happened 3 times, like it can't happen again. And then it happened a 4th, and then it happened a 5th, and I like landed on my face, ended up like really cutting myself here. And that like really knocked me. And I also had like a family wedding a week later, And I was just thinking, I'm gonna have to go to like a family wedding with like a hole in my face, like looking like pretty beat up, and like, am I really like good enough to be doing this? Like, why am I crashing all the time? Is it like my fault? Like, am I doing something? Like, am I good enough? And I think you have all these thoughts and like negative thoughts, and yeah, that you have to be pretty strong and resilient and like mentally strong to kind of, I have to like work through the logic of it and be like, okay, wait, hold on, let's rewind back to like March where like I won a big race. Okay, so like that was only a few months ago. Like actually my training numbers are better than then. It's just that I've like had X problem or X bad luck, and that is part of elite sport. And I actually said this to, I was talking to another rider the other day, because she won the British marathon mountain bike race that I did on the weekend, and she's had like an amazing season this year, and I just said like, congrats, like you're having such a good season. And she was like, yeah, like feels like it's been like I've been through such a trough to like get here. And I was like, well, elite sport is such a roller coaster, and like you just have to stay on it. Like you're gonna have these downs, and I feel like I've had that the past couple of months, and like if you stay on it, it will eventually get to a point where like you win a big race, or like you get a really good result at a race that you're really happy with. And like the feeling when you cross the finish line winning a race is like indescribable. Like the race I won, so I won a UCI race in March in Brazil, and I remember like I just get so emotional, I start crying. So I won 2 UCI races ever, which is probably they're the biggest races I've ever won. And like with like 5k to go, I have to control myself because I like start getting emotional, especially when you know the time gap. So like I had like 13 minutes the one in Brazil, which is like a decent gap. So it was unlikely that I was going to get caught. And I had to like keep pedaling whilst also I was getting too emotional to keep going. So sometimes, yeah, you have to like really work on this kind of self-talk and like, yeah, remotivating yourself and remembering back to those moments and how amazing it feels to win a race, to get you through all the hard training and all the crashes.
I feel like you're very good at dissecting how a race went, though, just from seeing your social media and your kind of overview of the races. I feel like they give such good detail, and you have broken down exactly what happened and why. And then I also like how you kind of, at the end, you summarize with, right, what I'm going to do for the next one, or okay, on to the next one. The next one is this. And it's like you're very good at looking forward to the next one, rather than sitting in what perhaps went wrong or the misfortune of the current one. Do you find that sometimes sharing that and being really open on social media then helps you also push through to the next race?
I would say so. I think that I definitely use social media. I'm very honest on social media, and I find like it frustrating when other people maybe aren't as honest on social media about racing. So one thing I find really hard is after a race when people put up, or like more frustrating if people do it before a race and put up like excuses. So the amount of people who like in racing, and this is across lots of sports, like they'll get to a race and before the race has even happened, there's an excuse on social media. Like, oh, I've been sick this week, or like this happened in the travel, or whatever it is, or like I've been really busy this week. And I just think at the end of the day, everyone's trying their best. Like you do it because you love it. Just do your best. And I like to give like an honest explanation of what happened in the race. So for example, like, oh, I crashed, or I did something silly, or there have been cases where people have crashed and that's caused me to crash. And I've said that, and that is unfortunate. But like, yeah, being honest about it, breaking it down, but like making yourself human, because like at the end of the day, everyone's just trying their best. You're trying your best. And like, there's going to be another race probably in a couple of weeks' time. And you're just going to learn from all these experiences.
And you get to have a do-over.
Exactly. Like every race is basically an opportunity that you, and this is one thing about cycling that is unique, is anyone on the start line could in theory win. And that's not true with running. Like in running, there's a level of, and other sports as well, like say like running, you don't really impact other people's races. Like everyone just runs the best that they can run. Whereas like cycling, for some reason, like someone could get away and like other people could crash, or like a multitude of things could happen where like actually anyone with a number on the start line could win the race. And that's really exciting.
It's really cool.
And it's part of the reason I really love it as well, is that like there's so many elements that could happen and could change a race. And actually, like, I could show up to a race and not be the fittest person on the start line, but still win.
Yeah. I love that. I love that side of it. It also brings an element of excitement to it because it's not just the same people winning every single time.
Not just Pogacar.
Yeah.
Men's road cycling.
What parts of your background or personality do you think have helped you thrive in gravel specifically?
I think kind of being a bit easygoing and like more relaxed does help with gravel, just because you're kind of doing it all yourself. You have to be a little bit on top of what you're doing yourself, but also like you do have to be a bit more chill because no one's gonna be fixing your bike necessarily before a race. So like with road teams, they'll show up to a race, someone will hand them like a perfectly ready bike, they'll just have to like focus on the riding. Whereas gravel, you have to do so much around it yourself. So I think you have to be a little bit less type A, especially for races. Like I did a gravel race in I've done it 3 times actually. There's a stage race in Kenya that's like you camp every day and they give you food, and you can't be type A in that situation because you don't know what food's going to be there. And I remember one day I couldn't really find any carbs at breakfast, or there was like quite a lack of carbs. There's definitely no oats, and I'm classic like porridge or oats for breakfast on race day kind of person. And there was no oats. And I remember being like, oh, it's fine. Like, I'll just make a sweet potato sandwich, which I don't want to eat a sweet potato sandwich. Like, there's no joy in a sweet potato sandwich. And I also put ketchup on it to add extra carbs. Disgusting. But like, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
You're in the middle of the Masai Mara in Kenya. There's no oat option. Like, you can't go to a supermarket.
Yeah. This is fascinating because a lot of what they say is don't do anything new on race day.
Yeah.
Like, don't do that. But how do you, yes, you're super chill, which I think is probably a big part of it, like you're saying. But do you ever feel yourself being like, oh my God, how is this going to impact my race? And has it impacted your race? And then how have you pulled yourself through that?
I think because I've been in so many situations like that, I just have to be like, I have to do new stuff on race day. Like I totally agree with that. In a situation where you can control all the controllables, absolutely don't do something new on race day. Like don't have a weird breakfast that you've never had before. But like I actually once, to be fair, I did make an error. I had a double espresso before a race, and I never drink double espresso. And I remember like cramping in that race and thinking like could have been related to that extreme caffeine right on the start line. But aside from that, like so I did a stage race in Chile this year, and I remember like one day the breakfast again was like super random, and you just have to react to it, but like using the knowledge that you've got, and you can cope with what they've given you to the best of your knowledge. So for example, like putting together a like nutritious breakfast that's going to fuel the race. But yeah, you just have to, in some situations, you just have to suck it up and do the best you can.
Yeah, and I guess the other good thing is that everyone's in the same situation, so it's not like you're at a disadvantage.
Although you say that, and then in Kenya, loads of people started bringing their own food.
Oh,
so like actually not everyone was in the same situation. So I think you can control things. So like people bought a rice cooker. There was actually a group of guys who like bought a rice cooker. They hired someone to like drive them and drive their stuff in between, so they didn't get stuck on the coach getting to the camp, and they helped them like do the washing up, did cooking the rice, and they just ate plain rice every day. So you can, but I think I also get more enjoyment out of being at the camp with everyone, eating the rogue food that's on offer.
It's part of it.
It's part of the experience. And like if your stomach gets sick, like it's part of the story.
It's meant to be.
Exactly.
What made you switch from road to gravel?
So I kind of started doing a bit of both. So when I started cycling, so I was doing triathlon, and then I decided that I wanted to just focus on cycling. Eventually gave up the running. It did take me a few years to stop running, just because I did really enjoy it. And then I reached a point where I was like, it's not helping my cycling, this running. So I started racing. I did a bit of road racing, a few crits, and then I signed with it was like a multidiscipline team. So they let me do gravel and road. And I'd done 2 gravel races before, and I convinced them to sign me. It was like an unpaid team, but sponsored team. So I got bikes and kit and stuff like that, and support for some racing. So yeah, I did road alongside gravel, and I just very quickly realized that my natural skill set and physiology was more suited towards gravel than road. So we did a lot of crit racing, and I just can't deal with the surges. What I was saying earlier about the mountain biking, you get around a corner and like you're sprinting like full gas out the corner, and I was just getting dropped when people were sprinting because I don't have that kind of like high end like real intense efforts, but I can sit at a really high power all day that's like not as high. I can sit in like an uncomfortable zone for most people, but for like a long period of time, and that's what gravel racing is. So I kind of just realized that like actually I'm more suited physiologically to gravel racing. And then the community aspect of it, gravel community is like a lot more friendly. The races are in cooler places. The travel is awesome. Like I get to choose my calendar. So I literally like look at the calendar over the year and go, oh, there's a race in Colombia I really want to do. I'll go to Colombia. Like there's a race in Iceland I want to do. There's a race in Kenya. Like a variety of like exciting locations. The actual racing itself is more exciting because you're off-road, so you see more. Whereas like a lot of road racing is like town centre crits or like Belgium commesses. And yeah, the community aspect, like people in gravel racing are a lot more friendly, I'd say.
Interesting.
So that too.
Why do you think that is?
Oh, it's a good question, but I think it's the team element. I think on the road can be a little bit more toxic because there's teams and there's politics and like you're being selected for a team or like being dropped from a team, and then like teams against each other, and then there's kind of like tension between teams. Whereas I think because in gravel there are teams but there aren't many teams, I think a lot of us are privateers, and then we kind of build a community between each other. And you also have to work with each other in the race. So like in a race, if you get away with a group of other riders, you're going to be like a collection of different people from around the world, and like you'll move faster in the race if you work together. Whereas in road racing, there's so often like more of a team element that like you wouldn't be kind of, I guess you do make alliances and allegiances like in racing, but maybe not quite as frequently as in gravel racing. So like in gravel racing, I often find myself with the same riders, and like some of them are people I've genuinely made friendships with, and I'm like, yes, awesome, I get to ride with this person again. Like I know that we ride well together, I can trust their wheel. And like you are racing them, so you might have to sprint them at the finish line, but like I've had like hilarious conversations mid gravel racing.
This is so interesting to me because you do see this in also road as well sometimes, where it's, what do they call it, drafting? Yeah, so you're kind of pulling each other along and then you're taking turns with doing that. It's such a fascinating mindset to me of right, yeah, we're all against each other, but actually we're going to work together here.
Yeah.
And then sprinting and annihilating
and
each
then
other
race each other at the end.
Yeah
It's funny, and sometimes it's quite hard to sprint against people at the end if they are actually your friends, but at the end of the day you are racing and you are all competitive, so people will sprint. But yeah, you work together because it's like 30% more efficient to sit behind someone's wheel. It's a little bit less on gravel, but it's so much easier to sit behind someone, so it makes sense in certain race situations to like work with people. And it's also nice to not be alone.
Yeah, it's cool.
It is really cool. And I do like it. Like I've got a friend who's a triathlete who also does a bit of gravel. And in this race in America, Unbound, which is like the biggest gravel race in the world, she like rocked up behind me at one point. It was like maybe a couple of 100K in. And she was like, all right, how are you doing? And I was like, oh, amazing. And like normally in a race, you'd be like, oh, damn, like another woman's caught me.
Yeah.
Like that's maybe a position lost. But I was like, yes, I've got a friend.
That's so nice because, you know, you were saying where, yeah, okay, you don't have your team, but you're creating that community within and you're making fun of it as well.
No, 100%. And you also like, you start to travel with people as well. Like I've got a friend who I've made through gravel racing, and we've like gone on quite a few trips now together so she came with me to Chile, and I just said to her, oh, there's this really cool race I want to do that's like across the Atacama Desert. Do you want me to like connect you to the race organizer and we'll go together? And she was like, yeah, that would be awesome. And then like we're traveling across Chile together.
So cool.
And it's so fun. And like, yeah, we're racing each other, but like I'm then sharing that experience with someone else as well, which makes it so much better than just going on your own.
And doing on your own. You were in finance before, right?
Yeah.
What caused you, or what was the tipping point to get you to go from finance into cycling full time?
So I was in finance very briefly for just under 6 months, because sometimes I like look back and now I'm like, it felt like a lifetime, but it was just under 6 months. So when I graduated from uni, I had a job at Goldman Sachs, so like at a big investment bank in London, and I thought I'd be able to do it and still ride my bike a decent amount. And I learned very, very quickly that my working hours did not permit for any training. So I had to be at my desk by 7 in the morning, and I wasn't allowed to leave until after 7 minimum, Monday to Friday.
That's wild.
Yeah. And with like an hour-ish commute to and from the office, there was just no time in the day. Like I barely had time to eat dinner, never mind get any training in. And I would ride to the office and ride home as like my training every day. I gave myself Mondays off because I was just so tired.
Yeah.
And I found that like just very quickly I was getting quite sick. So like on the weekends, because I'd try and do like 5-6 hour rides to make up for the lack of riding during the week, I'd just make myself sick because my body was so run down. And then I get to work on Monday and I'd be sick. And then I have to do a whole working week, like really suffering with feeling unwell. And it was just unsustainable. And I think I also realized that I don't think I'm built for office job like life.
You and me both.
I just don't think I'm built for that. And I think maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, social media and just like growing up and like at university, I kind of had this image of like, that's what work was you finish uni, especially I was pretty academic at school and then did like a maths degree. And like following that, you'd think, okay, well, it makes sense to go into finance and like I can earn a good amount like doing this job in the city, and that's what everyone else is doing, that's what I should do. And it didn't take me long to like be there and realize that actually like it's not actually what I wanted, and it wasn't actually bringing me any happiness.
Yeah.
And I actually like remember quite a few times I'd be like sitting at the desk and I'd like got all my work done, because I'm actually like, when I switch into like working mode, I can be super efficient. So like I'd efficiently get all my work done. It'd be like 9:30 in the morning, but I had to stay there till 7 p.m. And I'd be sitting there and like I can remember a few times being asked to do something that was just like really frustrating, or like finding something really frustrating and having to like go for little crying breaks in the toilet.
Oh my God. Wow.
I don't think that was unusual.
Yeah.
Like I spoke to a few people there and they're like, that's pretty normal, like little crying breaks in the toilet. And I kind of normalized that like I would have these little crying breaks in the toilet. And then I had my first like, I'd say it was my first ever holiday I took from that job, because the person who was one senior to me said to me that she didn't take holiday for over a year after she first joined, so I wasn't allowed to. She legitimately said that to me.
Oh my God.
And I was like, I'm sorry, no, I think I am going to try and take a day off. I need a day off. So I took a day off, went on holiday with my partner to Vienna. And I remember just like, it was my first time I'd like been able to like relax and starting the job. And I just thought, nah, this isn't healthy. I shouldn't be feeling like this about work. And it's not normal to go and have a cry every day in the toilet.
No, that is so not normal.
It's so not normal. And I also think I'm just not built to like sit down for 12 hours.
Yeah.
Like I'm such an active person, and like now looking at my lifestyle versus then, like it's crazy the difference. Like I spend a few hours training every day. I don't sit down.
No. Was there anything about leaping into cycling that scared you, or was it just pure excitement?
It was terrifying because like financially it was such a risk. So I went from like a really good starting salary, like a job where I was like, I've obviously got like life insurance, a pension, health insurance, all of these like great things that like you're told that are really important, and they probably are important, and I probably should worry about them at some point, but all of these kind of like adult things. And like I had like I had rent to pay, and I think at that moment I just kind of prioritized my own mental health and like enjoyment for life. And I was like, oh, I'm young, like I could always go back into this job if I wanted to, or I could go back to a similar job if I wanted to. And I'd been tutoring, so when I was 18 and like at university, I tutored on the side. So I just always tutored maths as just like a little bit of side money, so I knew I could earn money. So I wasn't like overly panicked, but I was a bit scared because I didn't have tutees at that moment. I knew I need to go out and find them. So yeah, it was really scary. And like I remember the first few months not having that much tutoring work and like not earning much money, and I wasn't earning anything from cycling at the start, and that was really, really scary. And thinking I'm gonna have to use my savings to pay my rent. But at that moment I was just like, I think this could be worth it. And actually looking back, I've had a few moments where I've thought back to like the level of cyclist I was then when I made that decision, and I was nowhere near good enough. Like, I'm so much faster now than I was then. And it's crazy to think at that point I had the guts to be like, oh, I'm going to give cycling a go. And I remember people saying to me, like, I know my parents supported me, and like, not because they thought I was going to be a good cyclist, but I think because they knew that I was unhappy in my job. But I remember like there were some other people in like the London cycling scene who like made comments basically being like, what are you doing? Like, you're nowhere near good enough to like, and also people making comments about like, why would you quit that job? Like, that's actually a really good job. And quite a lot of judgment from people for doing it. And actually, on reflection, it was pretty crazy that
yeah, but it's like, this is the thing. I think crazy is so cool. And I think when you have that inner, you knew that you could make it work. Otherwise, you wouldn't have done it. You wouldn't have dared.
I think I had to make it work.
Yeah. But this is great. I spoke to someone recently about this, about not having a plan B makes you make plan A work.
Yeah, that's actually such a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Because I actually, like, the only backup I had was that I could earn some money tutoring. But yeah, I actually had to make cycling work. Otherwise, I'd look like an idiot. But also, yeah, otherwise I'd be like kind of back at square one. But yeah, I ended up like, it's maybe 5 years down the line now, 4 years down the line. And like, I'm earning like a living out of it. But it's crazy to think back then that I had the guts to do that. I remember my boss as well at the time, like we had a meeting about it and he was like, Maddy, are you sure you're going to make money outside?
But this is the thing, it's like not everything is about making money, particularly when you're
also
young.
very true.
You have so much time to do that, and if your passion doesn't allow you to have a life where it's stress-free financially, cool, pivot. But why not try?
100%. And I think I've come to realize as well that actually I wasn't like really keen on making lots of money, and like actually I'd much prefer to be making enough to survive and enough to like not worry or like be anxious about like buying a nice coffee when I go to a nice coffee shop, for example, and like enough to like buy myself nice things if I want nice things, but like not be frivolous.
Yeah.
But like actually that if your job is the thing that you love and that's the thing that you're doing every day, and I'm literally traveling the world and riding my bike every day, then why would I need to earn more? Like, this is like perfectly like exactly how I want to live my life, at least for now. And the age thing is such a good point as well, because if I'd have kept in that job, I wouldn't have been able to go back and then do this. Like, you're only going to be your best when you're younger. Actually, gravel cycling, you can keep going for a little bit longer because it's an endurance sport. But like, it would have been really hard to then make that decision much later.
Yeah.
And probably wouldn't have had the opportunities I've had. And yeah, you might as well just try and do fun things that make you happy when you're younger.
Amen to that. I think
and can be sensible and get a pension at some point.
Yeah. Pensions are overrated, coming from people who have never had one. How did you navigate that noise and judgment when there are other cyclists in the London community being like, you're crazy, you're not good enough to do this?
I think I honestly don't know, because I think I'm just a relatively self-assured person, pretty confident. I wasn't necessarily confident in my ability, but I think I'm just pretty confident that I can work hard, and like if I set my mind to something, that I can make it happen. So yeah, I think I just was kind of like, yeah, they're like way older than me, they don't know what they're talking about. Like, I'd only been cycling for a few years. Like, actually, if you've only been cycling for a few years, you don't know what your like limit's gonna be, and I definitely haven't like plateaued yet. Like, I'm definitely still improving, so like I don't know what my limit's gonna be. Like, I might hit a plateau next year, who knows? But like where I am now, I'm good enough to be competing like internationally, and like I can still win races. Like, I'm not the best and I'm not competing against the best in the world, but I like can be, like, I'm good enough to race in the world championships, and like that's good enough for me.
You're more than good enough to be there. More than good enough to be there. Were there any misconceptions you had about turning pro that since you've been doing it, the reality has completely changed your view on it?
I think there's some things about fueling that I've learned. So I think, and this is more just like about being like a elite athlete, is before I was an elite athlete, I'd maybe think like that you'd eat like super healthy food all the time. And actually, in reality, I'm eating Haribos so much of the time just to get enough carbohydrates in, and like eating like a bowl of Rice Krispies to the day before a race to add like 100 grams of carbs in like carb loading, things like that I think you just wouldn't think is like part of being a professional athlete, but actually it is, because some of, like, say if I'm doing a 360k race, I just need to get a ridiculous amount of carbohydrates in the day before, and the only way I'm going to do that is like Haribo's and Rice Krispies. It's really like you can't eat enough pasta or rice.
Well, it's the thing, you just get so full when you're eating really good whole foods. It's so difficult to hit it. But did you ever struggle with that relationship once you had to start adding more carbs in? How did you find a healthy balance with it?
It is really hard, and I think I get quite a lot of joy in cooking, so I actually think I've kind of, a lot of my relationship with food is really good because I have such a joy in cooking that I make it like a fun thing, and I find it really relaxing to cook. And for me, it's like a fun challenge to be like, okay, how am I going to hit these carbohydrates over the day? I think sometimes I'm like, I don't like Haribo, why am I eating Haribo? And like, that's hard. And I actually, another pro racer said to me, we were having a chat about something about carb loading, like before the Tracker 360 this year. And she said to me, the one thing that would make me retire from cycling is carb loading.
Interesting.
She was like, it's so rubbish. And like, she is right. It is actually rubbish because you don't feel good. And like, you're eating so much that you really don't feel good. And I actually, although I do love food, I actually do kind of resonate with what she's saying there. Like, that it isn't fun, but it is only like 1 day before a race or 2 days before a race. And I think it's getting that middle ground as well. Like, I used to do 2 days before the race or like 3 days before the race. And now I kind of cut it down to like only 1 day before the race or like 1.5 days, because I think I still go quite well. But yeah, it is hard. And that's something that I definitely didn't expect to ever struggle with, is like eating enough, because I love food.
Well, one of your mantras is carbs today, what's tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Where did this come from?
That's I actually think that comes from a brand that it's like, there's like this app called Hexis, and they have this like basically a way of like using your training calendar to tell you exactly like what macronutrients you need to hit. It's actually a really clever app, and I think I've got it from them. But yeah, they're really like, because all of it comes from like sports nutritionists, like it calculates exactly how many carbohydrates you need to eat. So like, it's really high in terms of when you look at those numbers at first, because I used the app for a bit to kind of help me with my training and like build my knowledge as well about like what macros in it. So for example, the hot cross bun, 35 grams of carbs, which people don't realize. And it's also like really low fat, and it's got some protein in it. It's an amazing ride snack. It honestly is the dreamy ride snack. And like, so I used the app for a bit, and yeah, they have that mantra just because I think you learn when you're using the app, you're like, oh my God, I actually need to eat a lot more carbohydrates than I realise.
The education is so important. Have you ever felt pressure to quote unquote look like an athlete rather than just perform? As when I say just, like, to do that is incredibly hard.
Yeah.
But has that pressure ever come into it at all?
So one time I did get a comment on a YouTube video where like someone commented that they'd noticed that I gained weight.
Okay.
And I thought that was the kind of first moment where I had like a real think about it, or like a bit of a wobble over it. Because I had, to be fair to them, I had gained weight. So it was like the world champs last year, and I'd like earlier in the year, I'd like lost a bit of weight after doing a big training block, but then I'd missed a couple of periods. So I was like, okay, like I need to get on top of this. This is like really important. I need to like make sure I'm fueling enough. And also like most of my races later in the year were quite flat. So like actually being heavier is actually probably advantageous. So I'd put on a bit of weight, and I'd been off the bike for a bit. So easily put on weight then, because I wasn't exercising for a few weeks. And that comment made me really think, oh, like people actually like notice things like that. And I don't think they should, like, it's okay for them to notice, but it definitely shouldn't be commented on a public profile. But yeah, definitely that made me have a bit of a moment of being like, oh, like, do I actually need to reflect on like I'm not like a heavy cyclist, but on the grand scheme of things, like some cyclists are like 20 kilos lighter than me, because some of them are tiny. And I would much prefer personally to be healthy. And I mean, I've had 2 colds the whole of 2025. Like I've been super healthy this year. Last year, earlier in the year, when I was like a bit lighter than I am now, I was getting sick like every month. And the difference now, when like I'm, if anything, yeah, like a little bit on the heavier side, but like not sick, able to train consistently, and like my numbers are so much better. Like my threshold is maybe like 30 watts higher because I'm like training consistently with no like dip to get better
so
from
important.
sickness.
It's so important. And I think when I look at cyclists from the outside looking in, perhaps more so in road cycling, just because that's what I've seen a little bit more of than gravel cycling, which we are also going to come on to in terms of it being put out there into the world. But there are some cyclists who are incredibly petite. And I remember even seeing with Mark Cavendish, him saying, you know, the only way I could improve my times at a certain point where he'd plateaued was when he lost weight. So he basically developed an eating disorder. Have you noticed that as being something quite common in your world?
It's really common in road cycling, and actually there were a lot of comments about Pauline Ferrand-Prévot's weight because she was a lot heavier at Paris-Roubaix earlier this year than she was at the Tour. And then there's been comments on both sides where people have said, like, is that a good role model to be like losing so much weight? And she said herself, like, I'm not healthy right now, like this isn't a healthy weight, but this is what's essential for performance at this level. I actually do get that, but also I personally would like to be a good role model, and I'm not competing in the Tour de France. I'm not competing to win the Tour de France. So I understand in her position, she wants to win the Tour de France. Like there's team pressures, there's sponsor pressures, there's money in it. Like it's her like life goal, basically. She's always wanted, like that's been a big thing that Pauline Ferrand-Prévot's always been like talking about, is winning the Tour de France. And like for me, I'm not racing in that kind of racing. I'd actually prefer to be healthier and a good role model. But also for me, it's the like it's the longevity of it as well. Like you're going to have a longer, more sustainable career if you're healthy and you're a healthier weight. But there definitely are pressures, and I think it's more spoken about now. Like there have been a few girls in the like Women's World Tour peloton who've like come out and said like, okay, I've like not had a period for X amount of years, like I'm actually going to take a break and like wait until like my period comes back and then I'm going to go back. And like teams have supported that. Like there have been a couple of riders that I know who've been supported through like having a break to get their period and then go back to racing. So it's something that people are really aware of now and talking about. But it's so hard when it comes down to like the top end and performance, because it does make a difference. And like when I was at my lightest last year, I won a UCI race, and like sometimes I think back and go, oh, like when I was X kilos lighter, I won a big race. Like it did make a difference. I was faster, but I got really sick afterwards and then had to take 3 weeks off the bike. So is that really the way to do it? And you can, I mean, especially I guess in Pauline Ferrand-Prévot's situation, she's like working with nutritionists, working with team staff. Like I'm sure they're really controlled as to how like her weight's going to fluctuate, and I'm sure she'll put on weight now after the Tour. But especially if you don't have that kind of support, I think it's always more important to like be healthier than be skinnier.
What can the cycling world do to promote healthy is good for performance and just for day-to-day life, to welcome more people into the sport, particularly if they don't feel like they have, again, quote unquote, traditional cyclist figure and physique?
I think the problem with the Tour de France is the climbing, because that's where weight comes into it. So like gravel's actually better because in gravel, a lot of it's pure watts rather than watts per kilo. Okay. So then actually in gravel racing, you are stronger if you're a bit heavier. And that's why you find in gravel versus the road, sometimes like taller athletes or bigger athletes, or like just more muscly athletes. Like everyone just has, like there's more variety of builds. But even actually on the road side of things, there are female road cyclists, especially more so than the men. The women actually do have more of a range of body shapes and like sizes. And it's because your shape and size and weight, there are different benefits in different kinds of stages or different kind of races. So yeah, I think it's really hard because you can't really say like, oh, take away all mountaintop finish stages or like take away big mountains from races, because mountains are exciting like to watch as spectators. They're like huge challenges as cyclists, but that's really where the weight comes into it. And you see like the 45 kilo riders winning the stages is like these mountaintop stages. So yeah, it's really, really hard. But I think it's just like I think the baseline, and I was actually thinking about this after seeing people's comments about Pauline Ferrand-Prévot's weight, and like her coming back, and like other people saying like we shouldn't be commenting on her weight, for example, is like, I think that yes, we shouldn't be commenting on people's weight, but we should also, there should be a bare minimum line where like, to compete at a professional level in a sport, you have to pass heart tests. So you have to pass heart tests. Why shouldn't you also have to pass like do you have a regular menstrual cycle test?
I love this.
Like, why are we saying, okay, cardiac health is super important, but like
Hormone
reproductive
health,
health, it is equally important. Like, yes, cardiac health's more important maybe because you, like, obviously you can have extreme, like, tragic situations happen with athletes and their hearts, but like, actually for like athlete health, we should think about that. And it wouldn't be hard to do that. Like, to run blood tests, I'm sure all the teams run blood tests on their athletes anyways, and just say, no, you can't compete at this level if you're not healthy.
I think that is a fantastic idea. How do we get that rolled out?
I don't
Because
know.
it needs to happen.
I think it really does need to happen, because if that then was set as a baseline, it would trickle down throughout, and it would affect like younger women watching riders would then see and be like, well, they're all healthy, they've all got a regular period, like they all appreciate hormonal health is really important, therefore I'm not going to restrict so that I'm lighter for the mountains. I think it's like, you kind of have to start at the top for it to then trickle down.
Yeah, and have that effect on the way down. How would you describe the current culture and community of gravel racing?
Gravel racing is an interesting one because it's a bit more relaxed than road racing. Like, people tend to be a bit more chilled, but it's changing. And I would say it's becoming more professional. So when I started gravel was just really starting over here. So gravel is an American sport. I want to say it's between like 10 and 15 years old. I actually can't remember when the first gravel race was Unbound, used to be called Dirty Kansas in America. And like, it's a very American sport, and it's come over to Europe in the past like 4 or 5 years, a few years longer for a couple of races, but that's like when it's kind of been kicking off in the past few years. And like, perfect timing for me, because that's kind of when I got into gravel cycling. So like, a lot of people, and I've had like people ask me in like interviews and stuff, they've been like, oh, you're one of the original gravel cyclists. I'm like, well, I actually only started cycling when I was 20, so I'm not really, I hit it at the right timing. Like,
Yeah.
So yeah, gravel cycling is very new, but it means that it's evolving quite rapidly. So when I first got into it, it was super relaxed. Like what I was saying earlier about the feed zones, like you'd stop at the feed zone. I remember the Tracker 360 2 years ago, I stopped for half an hour and ate a bowl of rice.
Oh, wow.
This was when I was like vomiting. So like, to try and eat something, I like sat and ate a bowl of rice. I came 5th, having sat down and eaten a bowl of rice for half an hour. This year I was like 2.5 hours faster. I did not stop at any point to eat anything like that, and I came 7th. So like, the level in those 2 years has just got to a point where like no one was stopping and eating.
Yeah.
Whereas 2 years ago, like, it was completely acceptable to stop and like eat some rice, eat some pasta. That was part of like it was such a long race that you were like, that's part of it. You like stop for a bit. Whereas now we absolutely, like, they're not even stopping to change their hydration vest. They're doing it on the go. So yeah, it's evolving a lot. And I think that's also because more sponsorship money's come into it, because brands are selling more gravel related stuff. Gravel's becoming really popular, so there's more money in it. There's more prize money in it, although there's still not much prize money in it. But yeah, I think it is becoming more professional as it's becoming more popular, which is kind of changing the atmosphere and making it a little bit less fun. But I think it still has, like, it's still a lot more fun than road racing in that sense.
Would you say it's still more inclusive than traditional road racing?
I would say so. I think more because you don't need a team to do it. So like, you could be someone who just trains on your own, doesn't necessarily have any sponsors. You buy your own gravel bike and you can still compete at the top level in gravel racing. Like, you could still show up to the Tracker 360, race in the elite field, and like, if you are good enough and that level, you could podium. So like, I think in that sense, there's lower barrier to entry than road racing, definitely. Yeah, anyone can kind of show up to a gravel race if they want to, which is also awesome. And I think this is another element of gravel racing that's awesome, is like, as a road racing fan, you're not going to race the tour alongside the pros. Whereas as a gravel racing fan, you can be on the same start line as your gravel racing idols.
That's so cool.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
And like, I actually like sometimes I have in racing, and like we start at different times to the men and the like non-pros. We used to all start together, whereas now we all start like separated. So we've got separate races. But sometimes like I come across people in the race, like they're overtaking or I'm overtaking them, and people will like cheer me on. And it's like so nice. Like they recognize you and they're like, oh, go Maddy. And I'm like, oh, thank you. Or like, I like your YouTube. I sometimes get that, like, I love your YouTube, like mid-race
so
from,
funny.
and it's normally a mammal.
How have you found navigating, kind of carving your space in a world that hasn't always been widely representative?
That's a really, really hard question. I think I've just like tried to just be as authentic to myself and like, yeah, just constantly being authentic on social media and like not hiding away from any element of like my identity or personality. And I think that's the most important thing, is like just, yeah, being honest to who you are and like not hiding that on social media. And I think also, yeah, just like being present at these races and stuff as well. Like I race quite a lot. I'm often I'm at most of the races. If I race too much, I need to give myself a break sometimes. And like participating in like community stuff as well. But yeah, I would say that. But I think gravel is better on the whole compared to road racing as well. And there's more gender equality in gravel racing as well.
Really?
Definitely. Like in terms of there's not much prize money in gravel racing, but whenever there is, it's always equal.
This
so
is
like
good.
Completely different to road racing. And the media exposure is the same. So like a lot of the races show, apart from Gravel World Champs 2 years ago when the men's was televised and the women's wasn't, apart from that, the media exposure has always been the same for races. So like on socials, you see on like the Instagram accounts, like they'll always be like, this is what's happening in the men's race, this is what's happening in the women's race, or like post the results of the men and the women. It's not like there's a men's race, and there's also happens to be a women's race going on.
Yeah. Have there been any particular mentors or experiences that you've had that have helped you feel more confident in the space?
Oh, that's a hard question, because I think yes and no, because I kind of came into it towards the beginning. So even though I'm such a fresh cyclist, but then I think also when I first started, so when I joined this team that was like the multidiscipline team in the UK, there were a couple of riders on that team who kind of took me under their wing. So like we went on a first team camp, and I actually remember like one of the girls who I'm still friends with now, she like turned to me, we like had dinner, she's like, Maddy, this was after a few days, she was like, do you eat any protein? And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, I don't think I've seen you eat anything with protein. And I was like, yeah, what? Like, what do you mean? And she was like, no, it's actually really important. And like, she passed that knowledge over to me. And that was maybe like 5 years ago. And now I'm hitting my 120 grams of protein every day.
Love this.
And then like there were a couple of riders there on that team who like, yeah, like really kind of saw potential in me and like my enthusiasm, and like still really support my racing now. And like most of them have pretty much all retired now from racing, and they'll like text me like, how's your racing going, or like, good luck this weekend. Like I found a lot of people who are very supportive of me in that sense. And then yeah, like some people within gravel as well, like helping. I've got a friend who has like taken me out a few times and like shown me some technical riding, and like following his line has helped quite a lot. And like you also find, and this is I mean there's a hard balance with this, but some people will like connect you to brands or like potential brands to work with, but it is quite hard because like you also have the element of like, are you then competition with them? So that's quite a hard one. But you find people like when it does work for them and you do connect you with brands as well. I found a few people help with stuff like that.
And you said you came into the sport a little later than perhaps most cyclists do. Do you remember when you first felt like you truly belonged in the sport? Did that take a while?
I think that did really take a while. I mean, identifying as like a pro athlete took a long time. And I think it wasn't until I won the UCI race in Kenya last year, where I was like, okay, I've won a big race. I think this officially means that like I like do belong in this space. But I remember actually really clearly the year before that, I did this stage race in Kenya, the 5-day stage race. Was it? No, 4-day stage race in Kenya. And I won the last stage, and I did all right. I think I came second overall. So like I did really well overall, but I won the last stage by like over half an hour. And I actually remember one of the men who was like helping with the race organization, like came up to me after finish, and he just like looked me dead straight in the eyes and like completely sincerely was like, you are way better than you realize you are. And I remember that also being a moment where I was like, oh, maybe he's right. Like maybe I actually am good at this. So like a few moments like that where people have said like, no, you are actually really good, or like you actually could be really good, where I've been like, oh, maybe I can like maybe I have made like blagged my way into this. Because I think, yeah, imposter syndrome is definitely something I feel a lot of the time, and I'm like, oh, I've kind of like blagged my way into the position where I'm like doing this for work and it's like working. But yeah, definitely I do have those moments, especially when you have negative races where you doubt yourself again.
Have there, other than other people telling you you're really good, how else have you pulled yourself through those bouts of imposter syndrome?
I think just like refocusing on the next race or like the next goal and just thinking about that. I think I just have to like compartmentalize what I'm doing to like the next thing. I think I don't often look beyond the next race. Like I'm very much like, okay, I'm doing this next. So like my next race is like a mountain bike stage race in Iceland, and I'm just thinking right now about like, okay, to be fair, imposter syndrome, we get a whole load of this because mountain biking I'm brand new to, so like I've got imposter syndrome all over again. I have no idea what I'm doing. So like with that, it's like, okay, what can I do to like conquer that? I can like build my skills. So like I'm doing a skill session on Friday with someone. I've like organized to do like a specific session to like improve my skills. I'm going to do a couple of those before I go. Like I can spend more time on the bike. I can like check my position on the bike. I can, yeah, like ride with X person because they'll be good line to follow. I'm probably not going to do this, but I could watch like YouTube videos of people riding mountain biking to like learn from their lines and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's just like thinking around it and like ways you can work through it. But it's a lot of it is just self-talk.
Yeah.
And like you can rely, not necessarily rely on other people, but like other people can help you. But I think a lot of it has to come from within.
And do you feel any kind of sense of pressure or responsibility, not solely I guess as a woman in the sport, because you said it is pretty equal, but on the other side, I guess as one of the first people in the UK to be gravel racing, does that come with a sense of pressure or responsibility, I guess?
I think sometimes I feel like, say for example, with like British gravel national champs, I feel a level of pressure on something like that like I should win, or not necessarily should win, but like it would be really good for me to win. For example, like the national championships. And like the last year I was sick, and the year before it was a really short race, which I wouldn't really count as a gravel race. It was like 70k, which when I defined gravel, 70k wasn't even in the picture. It's like a long cyclocross race rather than a gravel race. So it really didn't suit me. So like I feel a level of pressure with something like that, where like I'm one of very few professional like full-time gravel racers in the UK, and then I feel a level of like, okay, could I win the national title? So I think there's a level of that, but then the problem with that is when it comes to national titles is you get a load of road pros who are then like, oh, I could win a national jersey, and then they come to the race, or like mountain bikers or cyclocross riders, and it actually does then become really competitive. And I also think like it's a race and anything can happen, and you never want to put your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
But definitely with stuff like that. And then I think like community wise, sometimes I feel a little bit of like pressure, or that what I say matters to some people. And I think that is quite a good thing to have pressure like that. And I think it just means that I'm more careful and thoughtful with what I do, I'd say.
Yeah.
And like what races I do.
Yeah. What do you think needs to happen in gravel cycling to ensure that it remains inclusive, not just for women, but for people of all backgrounds going forwards?
I think it's the whole question of it becoming too professional. So I think keeping the whole element of like, you have the pros race, but also everyone else races that day. So, or like races the same course. So like keeping it so like races, anyone can do them, I think is really important, because I think that's something that like road racing would actually benefit from if they like allowed people to like, say like Paris-Roubaix, if there's, there might be a Paris-Roubaix sportive, but like if like non-pros could race it the day after on the same course, I think that element to gravel racing is really unique and really special. So I think keeping that. I also think like helping younger riders get into it, because it's such a new sport, there isn't really the scene of like younger people doing it. And I think a lot of the time also because of, and I guess it's like insurance for the races, I don't think they can let younger people on the courses or like insure the race for like younger participants. So I think there needs to be kind of a way for younger people to be able to start racing, or like at least there'd be like, say like a youth series or something in the UK. Because I've met a few young people who are really enthusiastic about riding gravel bikes, but it's like, how do you convert that to then building the skills and racing? Because at the moment it's just something that adults do, really.
Yeah, and for people who are thinking about getting into it, what does a training week look like for you, and what might it look like for them if they were to go pro during peak season?
So training kind of changes throughout the year. So in winter, it's like a lot of miles, like a lot of volume. I train next week I've got a 27.5-hour training week. This week it's 20 hours. So like I do big hours, but that's not everyone. I'd say gravel's longer hours than the road typically, because the races are quite long, and like stage racing you also need to do quite a lot of volume. I do in winter like 3 weight sessions a week, and in summer 2 or 1. Sometimes when I'm racing I only do 1 gym session, but I do like to keep the gym going just for like injury prevention, but also generic strength. I do quite like going to the gym as well. But more in winter there's more focus on like actually like lifting heavier and like building strength, whereas in summer it's just kind of like mobility. I'm not lifting particularly heavy, I'm just trying to kind of maintain. And like a mixture. I do like a couple of interval sessions a week. In winter much less, and like easier intervals, and then like I kind of work that up, and like I think I've got 2 or 3 interval sessions this week and a variety of different stuff. But I work with a coach, and I think I would really struggle to not work with a coach.
Yeah, I can imagine, because there's so much to juggle, and also to make sure when you're doing so much volume that you're not tipping into doing too much. Yeah,
it's really hard, especially like when you love what you do. And I say that's something that I've had to kind of come out the other end of. Like when I first started cycling, I loved cycling, so I would just ride all day every day, especially in COVID. So that's when I got really into it. So like when lockdown happened and like the only thing you could do was go outside and exercise once a day, I made that one exercise count. Like I would plot a route on Strava whilst I had breakfast, and then after breakfast I would ride maybe 8 hours.
Love it.
Get back, like eat, sleep, repeat. And actually like that's not the best training necessarily. So like having a coach for me really helps, because it gives me structure, it gives me accountability, but the accountability is more for not overtraining than not undertraining.
It's so hard, and I think that's something as an athlete, like you say you're not A-type, but you're still an athlete, and you're still going to want to do as much as you can to win. So there's such a tendency to overdo it when it comes to these kind of things.
Also, if you love it, like I love riding a bike, so if a friend says, do you want to come for a 6-hour ride with me to this like cafe I've found that's new, I'm going to be like, 100%. But actually sometimes I need to go, no, I need to stick to my training plan.
Which demand of gravel would you say is the most challenging for you? Is it kind of the endurance, the strategy, the different terrain that you're on?
I think it's like race tactics, because like I'm good with endurance. I've spent so many hours riding a bike that like my endurance is definitely my strongest point. Technically, I've definitely got areas to work on. Like I think I'm pretty strong technically on gravel. Like I'm not really out of my depth. I'm out of my depth mountain biking, but gravel I'm pretty confident. But we're now reaching a point where like some girls are coming from mountain biking and then they're like actually getting advantage on technical sections, rather than, so like it's now important to like be confident on technical sections, especially in certain races. But race tactics, like now that there are more women racing, tactics actually come into it. It used to be just like in a gravel race, like you all just basically time trialed it. Like you'd all start, it would splinter to pieces, and it would just be survival to the line, and you just ride all day by yourself and like probably pick off a few positions or lose a few positions. Whereas now we've got more of like a peloton where like that people attack. Like you might have to like think about when you'd attack. Yeah, my race tactics are awful. Like I honestly, like, I'm like, for someone who's like decently intelligent, I have no race intelligence. I think I've like joked with people about it before, but like sometimes like the people who are like not particularly book smart are like super race smart, because I think they don't think, they just react. Like their instinct is to like go at the right moment, whereas I overthink. Like I'll be in a race thinking, should I do this here, or like how many watts am I pushing, could I do that for 5 more minutes, could I do that for 10 minutes? And I think I almost overthink everything rather than just going off instinct.
I think this is so this for me, I ask this question all the time, and I would love to ask it to a coach, be like, which athlete is easier to train? An athlete who asks questions, like you were saying, where you have that academic intelligence that comes into it of wanting to understand why you're doing things, but perhaps tipping into overthinking and overanalyzing, or an athlete that asks 0 questions and just goes.
100% the latter.
It's interesting, isn't it?
100%. I honestly think the best athletes don't think, they don't overthink, they literally just do it. Like I remember someone saying once to me that their sports psychologist said to them, they just have to think pedal monkey pedal. I was like, what?
What a
and
quote.
That is what they just say in their brain when they're riding. They're like pedal monkey pedal.
Right, just that's it. Like lights off, don't think, just go.
And I think maybe that's what I need to think.
Yeah,
because
we're gonna have to get you a sign at your next race and just
pedal monkey pedal. But I genuinely think that would, I think that the overthinking sometimes holds you back. Definitely does. And I've had multiple people comment on it with me where they think that I've got like I know they think I definitely do. I have like a fear of going into the red and blowing up. And I've never pushed the boundary. And so many times, like my coach has said to me, okay, this race, you're gonna stick on those wheels and you're gonna go into the red and you're just gonna see what happens. Like you're just gonna stay with them and see what happens, because you never do it. And like for some reason I'll like panic and be like, no, I can't do it. And then, like,
fear.
And like it's that fear. For me, it's a fear of blowing up and then not being able to finish the race. Or like blowing up and then like completely like my legs being obliterated and like having to pull out. But like actually that doesn't matter. Like sometimes you have to take those risks to be in the game.
When you are deep in the pain cave, or maybe you don't get there because you were saying you almost like
have a limit.
stop yourself before, but have you ever tipped into it a little bit? What has managed to help you keep going through that?
Oh, if I'm deep in the pain cave, so when I'm training, I've actually found blasting music through like bone conducting headphones works quite well. I used to not do it, and then someone told me to try it, and I realized that I can do so much better and push so much more when I'm distracted.
Yeah.
So like, and it doesn't have to be music that I like, just anything. Someone once said to me once, you just have to put in like German rap music. That's the way to do it. But I don't do that. I just do like workout playlists and just do that. That sometimes helps. But yeah, I think when I'm like suffering in a race, so like not because I'm doing such an intense effort, but because it's such a long day out, I just try and think about like, I'm doing this because I love it. Like I just try and remind myself, like, you could be sitting at a desk like going for
Goldman
crying
Sachs.
breaks at Goldman Sachs.
Exactly. Okay, I want to talk about Tracker 360 when you tore a ligament in your shoulder.
Oh, this year's Tracker 360.
Yeah, but you were you 100k in when it happened?
Yeah, so this year's Tracker 360. So Tracker's like the biggest race in Europe. So Unbound's the big race in America. Tracker's like basically the equivalent in Europe, or they're trying to make it, and it definitely has become. It's like one of the big races in the world. So this year I was in the lead group, and then basically the non-pro men started just behind us and they caught us, and it got very messy and it split the group up. So I ended up being just off the front. So there were I think 6 girls up the road, and then it was me and 2 other girls just behind them. So I was in a good position, and I was on this girl's wheel, and like she said she was fiddling with her bottle cage, and it was a non-technical gravel section, and she completely wiped out, like out of nowhere. And because I was on her wheel, I had absolutely no time to respond. So I just rode over her, like literally rode over the top of her. And I just remember like riding over her bike. I actually like stayed upright riding over her. It was her bike that knocked me off.
Yeah.
So then when I rode over her bike, my bike just like gave way and I landed on my left shoulder. And I remember hitting the ground and being like, oh, that really hurt. But I was like, this is the Tracker 360. I need to get back on the bike. Like I'm still like just off the front group. So I got back on my bike, started riding, and I was like, okay, the bike's not broken. Great. Because that's the first thing. Like if your bike's done or like there's something wrong with your bike, like you're gonna have to stop the race. But I was like, okay, no, I can ride. I start riding and I'm like, oh no, like have I broken my collarbone or something? Like something was wrong. And like I could like feel it was like kind of out of place, but it wasn't excruciating amount of pain. So I was like, do you know what, I can do this, I can keep going. So I got to the feed because like my partner was there and I also had a couple of friends helping me, and I just turned to her and I was like, someone crashed in front of me, like I think I've broken my collarbone. And like she was just like, right, are you continuing? And I was like, give me a painkiller. And then yes, like just give me a painkiller and I'll keep going. Anyways, she put the hydration vest on upside down, so it was like so tight on my shoulder. God. And it was like so painful. We could barely, like there's like this video of me like barely getting it around my arm. But at least it wasn't empty, so that was better than 2 years previous.
No vomiting.
Yeah. And then I like kept riding, and it was really, really tough. But I would say like my bike has suspension on it, which made it more manageable because then it wasn't like ridiculous amounts of vibrations through my shoulder. But yeah, I finished the race and I was in so much pain. So I had another 260k to go.
Yeah, that's wild.
And finished managed to finish on the podium, so 7th, because that's 10 people podium. And I crossed the line and there's just this video like my partner sending to me and be like, do we need to go to the hospital? And I'm just like, yeah.
On reflection, why do you think you kept going? I'm in awe. That's not me being like, why the hell would you do that? But
yeah.
What was it, do you think, that was in you?
Honestly, like my natural instinct in those situations is always to keep going. Like when I landed on my face in Iceland recently, I got back on the bike. It was just that my brake was stuck, so I couldn't pedal, and then that's what made me stop. But I did get back on the bike and try and keep riding, even though there was blood dripping from my face.
Yeah.
I think my natural instinct is always like, I definitely have a low pain threshold. So like tearing your AC joint is actually quite a painful thing. So like in theory, riding 260k with that would be very painful. But I think my pain threshold is definitely a bit lower. Because it was painful, but it wasn't like excruciating. And then, yeah, I think I just like, I'm just a bit crazy. Like
most high achievers are. It's a thing.
Just like, yeah. I think also like, I'm all the way there in Spain. I've trained X amount of hours towards it. Like I was just off the front group. Like there's no point in pulling out. Like I might as well keep going until it's too painful that I have to stop.
Do you think your definition of resilience has changed the more you've experienced the sport?
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, like now I'm like, I don't view that as that crazy, like finishing that race. Because I definitely broke 2 ribs. I didn't ever get an x-ray, but 100% because it hurt for like 4 or 5 weeks afterwards when I was in Kenya this year. And I finished that race with my ribs. But I think, yeah, I think you just kind of, you get desensitized to these things.
Do you think your relationship with setbacks has also changed over time?
I think it's improved. I think my relationship with setbacks always been pretty good. But now I kind of have this view on it where like, oh, if something negative happens, it's just a story. Like, yeah, it's not necessarily a positive story, but there's a good story out of it. Like the tear the AC joint, I actually got a really good newspaper article out of it. Like,
do it for the plot.
Exactly. Like literally the definition of do it for the plot. Like, got a good YouTube video out of it. I got a good newspaper article out of it. Like it was painful. I had to be in a sling for a week afterwards. Couldn't ride my bike for a week. Like I couldn't tie my hair up. There were some negatives, but like it was quite amusing for other people.
And we touched a bit on YouTube and sharing your story with social media, and you've chosen to be a privateer. What made you make that transition and choose that as your route? And also maybe we just explain to our listeners what that means instead of going, I guess, a slightly more traditional route with racing.
So with racing, you can be on a team, and like specifically like gravel now, there are more teams popping up. There used to be like less usual, but there are teams. Or you can be a privateer, which is basically like choosing your own sponsors and like brands to work with, and like basically building your own race program with them. And I became a privateer 3 years ago. Originally I was it was a bit complicated because I was like a privateer in a team. So I was a privateer in a collective of privateers. But it was, apart from the bike brand, we all had our own separate sponsors. And then I've kind of gradually, and like this year's my first year as like full blown privateer. I'm like my own boss. I think I love being my own boss. Firstly, like I like being accountable to myself. I know I'm going to work hard. I know I'm going to like, I can trust myself to like organize meetings with sponsors, like sort out sponsorship for next year, make the content, put the content out. I think there's that element to it where like it actually is quite enjoyable to do that stuff. I also think as someone who like used to work quite a serious office job, it's actually good for my brain to like do something that's not just pedaling. So like having the element where like I'm my own like manager, I'm my own agent. Like I spoke to a few agents before this year and I actually decided not to sign with anyone because like I actually quite like being my own agent. And I think I'm building skills, like life skills, for if I ever want to return to the workplace, not an office job, like not doing 12 hours a day. I don't know if I'll go back to Goldman Sachs, but if I ever went back to like working that kind of work, I will have built skills through the elements around my cycling. I can choose which brands best align with me and which brands I want to work with. And that means that I'm more enthusiastic about what I'm racing, but also they're enthusiastic about me. And it just, everyone gets more out of it. Like it just produces much better content. It produces like much better collaborations. Like I love the bikes I race on now. I absolutely love the bikes. And I think anyone who follows my content can probably tell that. The brand I work with then get genuine content out of me because I'm like, this bike's so much faster, like it's so fun to ride. And yeah, everyone wins when you're like doing that. Whereas if I was on a team, it might be that the team has a certain bike sponsor and it might not be my first choice of bike, or kit sponsor. Like my kit sponsor, it's like, so I'm sponsored by Velocio and it's like the comfiest cycling kit that you can get. Like it's super high quality. They're like super sustainability focused. There's so many like reasons why, like they were made for women originally. Like it's like like women focused kit. They also do men's kit now, but like it was like one of the first brands to like do proper women's kit. And like the kit's really smart looking. It's not overly branded. Like I can choose to work with a brand like that rather than working with a brand because a team has signed with them for like financial reasons.
Do you find having a social media presence is part of the job, or is that a separate thing that has power and purpose within itself?
I think I view it as part of the job. I don't think everyone does. I actually think, I don't think it has to be part of the job, but I think it really adds value to what I'm doing. I personally enjoy social media, so it's easier for me because it doesn't feel like work. Like, yeah, sometimes if a brand asks me to make a reel for them, it's like, oh, I have to make that reel. Like it's work. I have to sit down, have to properly edit it or film it. But like at the end of the day, like Instagram's fun for me. So Instagram and YouTube's pretty fun as well. Like it doesn't feel like work in that sense. But I think nowadays to like best promote the brands and like authentically also like build a community, like social media is really key. And it does really, really help athletes. And you've seen, like, for example, there's like a runner, Philly Bowden. Don't know if you've ever seen her content. And like she's built like a huge following recently. And like I think a lot of the support she gets is because of that following and that community that she's built. Like she now gets a lot of support from brands. And I think you can see with her like how much her social media has benefited her in terms of her career. And I also think it can encourage other people to do the sport as well, which is also part of the reason why you do it. Like, yes, you can do professional sport because you want to personally be selfish and like be an athlete, but actually like there should be a wider purpose to it. Yeah. And I actually had a moment like this last year in Scotland where there was like a young girl also called Maddy who was like really like enthusiastic about my riding and like had started gravel cycling after seeing me ride. And like it just made me think like actually you can have a slight difference in people's lives, and like people can start doing a sport because they see you do it and realize how fun it is and how accessible it is, and how like I ride to bakeries and then other people go and ride to bakeries, and yeah, like you actually can have an impact, but like that needs a platform.
Yeah. What kind of impact or legacy would you say you do want to leave behind? Not just in terms of wins and podiums, but in terms of impacting people's lives, like you were just talking about there.
I think getting more women on bikes would be like my number one purpose. Like I'm up for more people on bikes, but more women on bikes, just because like demographically there are less women on bikes than men. And I think I've actually seen more and more women on bikes recently, like especially just even just out training. You see it, and off-road, you see more women. And I think there's a level of, especially around London, like the roads aren't overly safe for cycling on the road. And I think gravel cycling is a way for people who don't feel confident riding on the road because of the traffic to start cycling, because you can like skip that. You can like go straight, well, if you can get onto a trail, like if you go straight out onto the trails, you can like avoid traffic. And there's actually quite a lot more women going straight into gravel and skipping out on the road for that reason.
Interesting.
Yeah, so like that. And I think, yeah, young people definitely, but just in general, more people, especially women, enjoying cycling because it is such an amazing sport. Like, I think I'm a huge advocate for cycling. It's definitely changed my life, and I think it's changed the life of like so many people I know as well.
What's something about your relationship with the sport that has changed the most over the past few years?
I think my relationship with the sport's got healthier. I'd say when I first started, I was like, I've got quite an addictive personality, and I definitely like quickly fell into like being obsessed with it. And I think I've now got a much more healthy relationship where like cycling is my job, but like I do other things around cycling. I have friends outside of cycling. I like have conversations that aren't about cycling. And I think that's improved more recently. And I think it also helps because like my partner doesn't care anything about bikes. So that makes things easier when like I'm at home, we don't talk about bikes. And yeah, like I think that's definitely changed. And I think that's quite common when you first start a new hobby, is like getting really into it and it being your life. And then when it then becomes your job, it really is your life.
Yeah.
And then you have to shift away from be like, okay, I need to have friends. I need to like do other stuff. But yeah, I think like there was one period of time where like I was super strict on trying not to do too much travel, trying not to like do too much like social stuff because I didn't want to get sick. And then I realized, no, actually like you just eat more, so then you're not at risk of getting sick. And like do the social stuff when it's important. Like don't miss a wedding, like don't miss like big family events, big friend events, don't miss like, yeah, like I think it's so important to like have a life outside of the sport as well as the sport. So I think that's actually changed. But yeah, I think my like enjoyment for riding bikes has always been like super consistent, super high. Like I've had quite a few people comment on it, and my coach has commented on it as well, that most people say that like 80% of the time they love training, 20% of the time it's not so good. And like that's about a healthy ratio. But everyone's always like to me, you're like 99%. And I think I am. Like I've only been like, I think there's only been like 2 rides I've ever done where I've actively not enjoyed myself.
Yeah. So with all the highs and lows, then would you say it's your love for the sport that actively pulls you back when you are having those difficult moments, like in those 2 races where you've not enjoyed it?
Yeah, I think my love for actually riding a bike always grounds me. Like I think if you love it, you're always going to keep doing it. And I think that's an element as well with the longevity of it and being like making it your career. There's some people who like, you can tell that they don't love it, they're just really good at it.
Yeah.
And then you're not going to last forever because they only enjoy it when they're winning. Whereas like, yeah, I can do a race and not do so well or like crash and like still have a really good time. So the race I recently did, like migration gravel race in Kenya this year, where I actually had to pull out because of the broken ribs. That one, I still then the next couple of days still raced. I didn't race, I just rode the course because I still love riding a bike. Like, yeah, I had some broken ribs. I probably shouldn't push myself. And I like didn't want to also race the other girls because I hadn't finished one of the stages, so that wouldn't be fair.
Yeah.
So like instead I just rode around for fun because at the end of the day I'm in a beautiful part of the world riding my bike, which is my favorite thing to do. So like I think that always keeps me going and like is why I think I probably could keep doing this for a long time.
What does excite you most about the future?
I think there are so many opportunities that I haven't hopped on yet. Like there's so many races that I haven't done. There are so many places that I haven't been. I think it's that kind of, and this is why gravel cycling is also so great, is there are so many races in so many cool places that it doesn't feel like I'm not doing the same calendar every year. So if you were racing the road, your calendar might be the same every year, and then I think that would get a bit repetitive. And like, yes, you can like improve on a result from the previous year, but I can like think about next year and be like, oh, like I could do that race in Colombia, or like, oh, I could do this race, and like there's a race in California that I want to do. There's a race in like Colorado that I really want to do. Like there's so many opportunities for like exciting and new things, and I think that's what's super exciting, is just kind of, I think, constantly learning and developing as well. And that's another thing with like, say, the mountain biking that I've just recently picked up, is I love learning. Like I actually do love learning, and I loved school, and I kind of miss that sometimes. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I really miss learning new things. And like as an adult, it isn't often that like we learn new things. And like I do love learning. So I think, yeah, like starting mountain biking, like progressing that, like maybe one day I'll be able to race Cape Epic, which is like an 8-day mountain bike race in South Africa. But yeah, just like learning some tactics. Just consistently developing, I think.
If you had one piece of advice for your younger self, what would it be?
One piece of advice for my younger self, I think it's just like, yeah, take every opportunity that comes your way. Like when I was younger, I did every sport that I could do, like all the time. I was exercising, doing things like, I would do like, I remember once competing for my school for table tennis when I'd never played table tennis before. Like literally any opportunity that came my way, I'd be like, yeah, I'll do that. Like racing cross country when I never jogged ever. And I think just like, yeah, taking any opportunity that comes your way, every travel opportunity, like see as much of the world. I think that was a big thing that's like massively like made me like the person that I am today, is like traveling the world.
I love it. Thank you so much. You have been amazing.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.